Emotions trapped in the body, trauma trapped in the body. Now, this is something that I've heard about before, but I've never really had anybody explain to me the physicality of what's actually going on when that happens.
Yeah, and what it's actually doing to your body and how it's manifesting inside your body.
It's very fascinating. And today's episode of Becoming Rock Solid, we have a special guest with us, Austin Schlueter, who is an energy healer and an expert in fascia and emotional release.
So we're going to be learning all about all of these emotional connections that tie into this incredible network in our body and how we can learn to release and let go.
All right, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
I keep it rockin' like promise. I'm way too turned up on a mission. Ain't no sitting in silence.
It's too electrifying to shock.
Find the muscle you're hiding hard off the pressure. I bring the pressure to the bitch. I don't ride and see me live. Get it right. Free your mind. We got some living to do. We bring it big from a trauma, make them sick. You know he flexing when they ask you who you with. We gon' rep it for life.
Rock solid, rock solid, rock solid. We becoming rock solid.
And welcome back, everybody. And we are so excited to get started into this particular topic. I know Sean is all about the fascia and the emotional and physical and the energetic connections that are going on in our body that we just don't really have a clue about at this macro level. So let's get into it. Austin, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Austin. So, I like to tell the story about when we first met. I was doing bodybuilding at the time, and I had this knot in my back shoulder that I just was just nagging me for years, and couldn't get rid of it. And I was just trying to also just kind of do my own research and kind of understand what exactly was a muscle knot. And at the time, there wasn't a whole lot of information out there. Even on the internet, there was not really a really good explanation other than it's just contracted muscle. Is basically what it would say. And and I'd worked with a few professionals to try to get these knots out and stuff. I've done some deep tissue and whatnot, and none of it really did the job. And then our mutual friend Zednik, another bodybuilder friend of ours, had been getting some work from you, and he says, "You got to meet my guy Austin. He's the best I've ever tried. He can get it out. He'll do it." And so we were at a bodybuilding show where I had a booth for Rock Solid, and you had a booth for your business at the time. I went over there, and Zednik introduced us, and I said, "I've got this knot in my back. Can you please get it out?" And you were busy at the time running your booth, etc., and didn't really want to do it. I'm like, "Please, I'll give you $50. Just work on me for 10 minutes." And finally convinced you to do it. And you got in there and fixed this knot pretty quick for me. And you were the first one to really kind of explain to me what is a muscle knot exactly. So could you tell our audience a little bit about what is a muscle knot?
So, a muscle knot is simply where the muscles are adhered. They are, for whatever reason, solidified and working as a different unit. So, for instance, if I had a muscle knot in my pec here, my pec minor would be adhered into my pec major. They're not supposed to do that. And when that happens, it creates an area of weakness. And that area of weakness then, of course, is triggering the nerves and slows down our function and ultimately sets up a place for injury. And the longer it stays, the worse it gets. A lot of what happens with muscle knots is functioned by what's called fascia. And what I found with fascia is the easiest way to understand it is it's like a leather under our skin. It compartmentalizes everything in our body, from our muscles to our organs. And the more that it compresses down, the worse the area gets, the smaller the muscle gets, and the more range of motion you lose. We have tons of these different things all over our bodies. And when you look at WebMD, it talks about how muscle knots are created by physical injury. What I used to teach people was that a muscle knot is basically where the two muscle fibers have stuck and they don't move anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And We can use dry needling, you can use massage techniques of Graston, which is basically where they take a metal and they scrape against skin, but some more aggressive things. But I recently found within the last couple of years that there's a lighter way to do the work, a less aggressive way, and a less more beneficial way to the body.
Mhm.
And it has to do with our mind.
Mm.
Mm.
And this is where it starts to get interesting because one of the things that creates a knot is stress. And when we
Mhm.
look at stress, we don't look at it as the emotions that we don't want to express. We don't look at it as the emotions we internalize into ourselves. And with fascia, since it's not really studied, it's being studied now though.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah, it's kinda
Being
new for them studying. I mean, at the time then, like, you introduced me to fascia, and so I kinda went off exploring, trying to understand it more, and there wasn't a whole lot of information out there, and then I found a really interesting video on YouTube about this. It was this female doctor giving a presentation to an audience, and she talked about how in medical school, when they would open up cadavers and do dissections, they would just toss the fascia aside and just think of it as this connective tissue and nothing else. And then it wasn't until she was like past medical school and kind of exploring things on her own that she started to really understand the importance of fascia and how much that really affects things like this.
Yeah, that's a crazy thing with it. Fascia is this thin.
Hmm.
And it is what it does is it sits on you and then it compresses.
Hmm.
And it's doing it based on your stress, your physical, your mental, your emotional. And eventually you are left with where the muscle will not work at all.
Hmm.
And from studying nerves extensively, I found that the more nerve compressions in an area, the more sensitive things would get. So, say you have a nerve compression in your bicep, it's going to be sensitive more here and more here. But if, say, I have a nerve compression here, now it's going to be 4 times sensitive here and 2 times sensitive here.
Hmm.
So, when people develop stuff like carpal tunnel, thoracic outlets, or it's the entire nerve structure, and our nerves don't stretch. And
Hmm.
since fascia is this unknown, it's 20% of your body, holds 4 gallons of water.
Has what, like 6 to 8 times more nerve endings than muscle?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's pretty much like this electrical charge thing inside our bodies.
Hmm.
And if it doesn't work and function properly, things don't work. And a
Mhm.
lot of what we have with deterioration and old age has to do with fascia.
Hmm.
I have a fun story that I had recently with a client. I love working on elderly people because they have so much stress on their bodies, and when you pull that off of them, they get a little bit of relief to the stress that they've carried with them for years.
Mm.
Mm.
And in this particular instance, their arm was like this. They couldn't move it, they couldn't reach up and grab cups, and after I got done, it was doing this.
Mhm.
But as it did this, there was click, click, click,
Mm.
not in an aggressive way, but it like greasing a joint, like on a car, and once I
Mhm.
got it done, it was moving and there was no pain, all
Wow.
done through fascia work.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Wow.
interesting. And I think one way you explained it to me at the time too is you can kind of picture it as steel wool, and it's almost kind of like the steel wool pulling
Mhm.
apart and starting to stretch. Kind of like a spider web.
Yep, it's so fascinating. In the 1960s, they did some studies, and they found that there were tubes in the fascia,
Mm.
which if we look at ancient, thoughts, you had meridians.
Hmm.
So if we've got water tubes in our fascia with our neurons moving energy around, what is
Hmm.
that? That would be the meridians, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting.
S
Yeah, and with the water being in there too, it's kind of a communication network too,
Mhm.
right? Water
Yes.
carries information. Water carries memory.
Well, that's the fascinating thing is when you peel fascia. So if I'm gonna, so a lot of people when they do massage, they push, they push, they push. But when you do fascia work, it's just a nice, gentle, gradual movement because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to catch that fascia layer and then move it around. And as I do that, I'm able to make the muscle underneath be able to move easier, have more
Hmm.
space. I found in my training that if I let my fascia stretch, then I have better muscle contraction and muscle movement, and I can hold my muscles in a complete contraction
Hmm.
instead of having it spasm like it would on most other people.
Hmm. Sure. And a contraction through the full range of motion too, huh?
Mhm.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm 264, which is pretty heavy. Um, and being able to do pull-ups, I used to struggle with them a lot, but recently I can actually feel my lats flaring and moving as I'm doing my pull-up,
Hmm.
and I am isolating to where I'm just using my lats when I'm doing my pull-up, so it's a little harder, but the fact that I can feel that stretch and move, I'm building something that has been a struggle for me when I was training.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're increasing that mind muscle connection too, all right? And
Mhm.
neuroplasticity is taking place while you're exercising. You've got way more of the BDNF flowing through your blood while you're exercising, and so that neuroplasticity happens way faster.
One of the things that I wanna do is I wanna get, those testers and put them on myself because I would say with the fascia work that I do through my light techniques, which are based on energy work and emotional control, which makes it very interesting.
Hmm.
I would say I'm probably using 40, 50, maybe even 60% of my fibers, maybe
Hmm.
Mm.
more. I have no idea.
Yeah, I would love to get hooked up to some of those ECG meters too, and see like what the percentage of muscle fibers going on too, because that's something I've really optimized for my training for was try to maximize the muscle fiber recruitment, and so I've kind of looked at like every aspect of the lift. Starting with the mind muscle connection, there's evidence that that recruits up to 25% more fibers just by focusing your attention onto the muscle that you're working. But then things like controlling the negative while maintaining that connection, going a little faster through the contraction, like all these things help recruit more muscle fibers. And so I would just love to have that physical evidence of hooking that up to a machine there and just seeing that in action
Oh,
when
absolutely.
you put it all together.
One of the big things that I see a lot of in massage is neck and shoulder injuries. A lot of people struggle with this area of their body. And when people train, you'll watch them and you'll see trap, shoulder in those things. Like
Oh,
most
yeah.
people can't do what I'm doing here,
Yeah. Isolate that
which is
lateral
just
delt or,
deltoid.
yeah. Especially like
Usually,
rear
and
delts, you
I
see
had
that a
that
lot, like the
problem.
whole back taking over,
Yeah,
traps
yeah.
taking over. Yeah. Yeah, so that's another thing that I teach too is just muscle isolation as much as possible and trying to reduce the secondary movers. And if you want to build a shoulder, look at the shoulder heads. I want a good front delt. Let's isolate that front delt. I want a good medial. Let's isolate the medial.
Yeah. Here's the interesting thing though, is if you feel that deltoid and it feels like bubbles or it feels like the bone is what you're feeling right here, that's all done by fascia. So
Hmm.
your
Mm.
deltoid is smashed down against the bone and it can't move. So as much as you try to recruit it, a lot of people injure themselves when they have this stuff like that. Like you'll have where bones are sticking up where they shouldn't be
Hmm.
instead of having where it's the full muscle. It is the fascia that does that.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, and that's causes a chain reaction too, right? Like you can have a fascia knot down here, but that's causing you not to be able to raise your arm up, or
Mhm.
restriction further down the line. It's just one big connection.
When it comes to energy work, most people they either can't feel it or they don't believe in it. And it's a matter of lack of understanding because if I do energy work on a person and I'm the only one that feels it and they notice nothing different, did I actually do anything? because that's where we get that psychosomatic thing.
Mm.
But if I do energy work and there feel the effects, then I did something with an unseen object.
Mhm. Mhm.
And this is where, when it comes to energy work, I'm kind of a pioneer because I believe that if I do something and you don't feel it, any effects, it was in my head the whole time.
Mm. Interesting. Well, let's help people to understand this a little bit better. Could you kind of explain like what exactly is going
S-
on when you're doing this energy work?
So I base my energy work off of quantum physics, and we need a little bit of background on this.
Mhm.
So there's a couple quotes that I really enjoy. Nikola Tesla said that the day that science looks at the unseen phenomena of the world through a scientific lens, it'll move in a decade more than it has in all of its existence.
Mhm.
This is because we test things by people that are unqualified to test them. If you can't feel energy, are you qualified to say and test it?
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah. Or
Yeah.
should we get somebody that's spent their life working on this stuff,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the tests are usually done by people that are unqualified. If I can't feel the electromagnetic energy that I'm wielding and moving, I'd never be able to move it, so it wouldn't exist to me.
Mhm.
But because I can, I'm qualified and I'm able to do that. When I touch people now, their bodies will shift and they will start to experience an expansion as the function moves. And this is done through quantum physics. So back in the 1800s, there was a study that was done that was called the double slit experiment.
Mhm.
This experiment proved that matter is aware of itself because it was either a particle on the backdrop of a board or it was a wavelength. And this was done through observing or not observing. Well, there's something that we can do where we don't observe, and it's called meditation. So when you close your eyes and you go inside yourself, you become one with everything that is you.
Mhm.
So for most people, when they do that, they get to live with their thoughts. When I do it, my mind is blank until I give it a command. And when I give it a command, then it affects things. Now, it's taken a lot of work to be able to remove all of my emotional trauma and the things that was creating all those unnecessary thoughts. And anyone can do this. And that's where it goes, okay, so we have a technique that we've misunderstood. I ask people if they meditate, and they say, no, I don't know how to. And that's because it's considered this hard thing to sit with your thoughts. But the more that you just focus on breathing and allowing yourself to just experience you, you get to understand who you are. And a lot of people don't like who they are, so they run
Mm. Mm.
because sitting in silence with yourself bothers them.
Uncomfortable.
And yep. And that's because there are nerve clusters in our bodies. And this is what the science is showing that correlate to the chakras of old.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And what I found in my research and how my technique works is different emotions affect each nerve cluster. So thinking of as one side of the same coin. So the chakra either functions in this state or this state, and the
Mm.
neuroplasticity of the nerves moves to those states. So
Interesting.
emotions now start to become very important
Mhm.
because the chakra will create more of what's inside it. And this goes to another quote that I love. Dr. Wayne Dyer, very famous in his time. And what he said was that you can't get apple juice out of an orange. So if we squeeze you, what comes out? I recently ran across a video clip that talked about how our thoughts attract similar thoughts every 17 seconds. So when you change your thought process, you shift to a different frequency. And a lot of what the science is saying about all this stuff is frequency.
Hmm.
So we are attracting and affecting things based on our frequency. And now, if we pull this all the way back to energy work, it can affect frequency. It's one of the only things out there that can alter a person's frequency
Hmm.
and help them move through emotional trauma and other things that have happened to a person without having to have them relive it over and over and over again.
Mhm.
Hmm.
I have a unique ability where I can pick up on emotion and I can read that emotion very, very well. So I know which emotion a person is functioning from in that state. And this allows me to pinpoint and accurately affect an area. So I know that, okay, we have deteriorations in the traps. Well, this is communication. And it doesn't matter why it's there. A lot of times it's because the person doesn't listen to other people. And if you understand that if I don't listen to people, my trap deteriorates.
Hmm.
Now that starts to go, do I want to continue that?
Hmm.
And this is all done by fascia because
Now,
fascia moves and compresses to emotion, which is stress.
Mm.
interesting. So you're connecting the emotions to certain chakra points then. So communication
Correct.
then affecting the throat chakra. So we're up in the traps. Is
Yep.
that kind of what you're saying?
Yep. So let's see here. Yeah, we've got a little bit right here. But so one of the things that I found, I held 35 certifications as a massage therapist.
Wow.
I'm also a certified hypnotist. And I found through understanding the mind, it helped me do my job as a massage therapist better because when somebody comes to me and they feel like there's an overwhelming amount of emotion in them because they lost somebody, I can help them process that, pull them out of their fight or flight state so that now they can move on with their life
Mm.
instead of being trapped in that state, slowly reliving it over and over and over again. Now, some people still want to have that grief and hold on to it, and that's fine. That's not for them. But the people that are trapped in it, energy work can help because it removes the emotions that that person is trapped in. So think of it as a cloud around you, and
Hmm.
you only see the grievances and the things you've lost and the changes and transformations you've had in your life.
Mhm.
But when I peel that cloud away, now you can see the things in front of you that matter because a lot of times the grievances and the catastrophic things that happen to people in trauma, they make it to where a person is deteriorating and they let go of things. They let go of themselves. They let go of their health, their house, sometimes their job. And this is all because they can't see anything outside of those thoughts that are bombarding them over and over and over again. And then how many things do you know that can just make it go away?
Mhm.
Not many.
Yeah, that's so very
So
true.
this is where energy work now has its own place. It
Yeah, and that sounds
helps.
more effective than like traditional therapy where they just talk about their story and reiterate it, right? And that doesn't seem to have too high of a success rate, does it?
Well, and here's the thing. I first learned about what my ability actually was and how I could read emotion. I was watching the movie The Northman, and as the Viking was going into the town and going to commit his massacre after they had done their ritual to put them in the berserker state, I could feel all of the anger and hate that that person had as they went in there. So when people relive these emotions, they build the energy every time like this. So as soon as you have a painful thought and you relive in it, you create more of that energy every single time you do that. And so if you're bringing that up in talk therapy, then you are reliving it over and over and over again,
Making those connections
which is
stronger
why,
and not weaker, right?
yes.
Mhm.
Now, if a person's ready to let go of something, then it's okay. It's the same thing. If I do energy, I strip people's emotions out of them and help them function from a different, more positive state, which then makes the tissue function better, helps that fascial sheet be more pliable and less restricted. Then they go and they're angry at the person that cut them off. They start to relive it over and over again. So, what I find a lot with energy work is I can fix a person, but until they have the mental fortitude and the boundaries through coaching, they relive the same things over and over again. And you're a big proponent of Stoicism. That's one of the reasons why that mindset is so useful because it teaches you that mental fortitude and that boundaries to control what's the 6 inches between your ears so that it doesn't control you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's one of the best tools I've found for that. Having that philosophical armor is just like a tool in the toolbox to pull out when you need it. And once you really get some of those lessons implanted into your psyche, and that starts to become your kind of natural reaction in life to challenges that
Abs-
come your way, it's very powerful.
Absolutely. One of the things I recently noticed is when I touch an individual knot, I can feel the different emotions in that knot. And I
Mm.
never used to be able to do that. So that's
Wow.
something new to me. But that goes and says, oh, that's inauthenticity, which is what the energy is that dysfunctions our throat. I
Interesting.
found that, like I said, that the different nerve clusters in our bodies are associated with different emotions. So the one in our root that sits in the glutes is associated by anger or calmness.
Hmm.
Our sacral, which sits in our reproductive organ, is going to be either worry or gratitude. Our solar plexus, which sits right there, so right at the bottom, a lot of people are going to be hollow because when it's functioning in a positive state, it functions and solids the muscle instead of creating this hollow space inside it, which I found very fascinating. So, solar plexus is going to be either fear or courage.
Power. It's your power center, right?
Yep.
Hmm.
And then our heart is actually broken into two. So, for a lot of people, when they look at it, it's one, but it's actually two. So, we have the bottom, which sits right here. There will be a hollow spot. And sometimes I also feel like a flower that's in there that's all pulled into itself. This is your masculine heart center. And this is either hatred or love.
Mm.
And then if we go from the bottom down, top of our crown is going to be either shame or pride. Right in the center here, you have your brow. It's either going to be doubt or faith.
Mm.
And then right in here, right about right there, is either authenticity or inauthenticity.
Interesting.
And then right about right here, where the two pecs, upper pec majors come in, another spot right there. I actually keep a gem on top of it. um, is going to be sadness or joy.
Okay.
They've always said that joy has to be something that we express. Because if you can't find joy in a cup of coffee, you won't find it in a yacht.
Mm. Love that. That's
So,
good.
like the old saying of where the only way to get through fear is to push through it.
Hmm.
Every single one of these is the same way,
Hmm.
except for the heart. Those two, you have to deal with the emotions of the upper because if we look at sadness and hatred as the negative energy that affects most of us, how many thoughts do you have of sadness or hatred throughout the day? And even caring too much, where you overdo and you overstep, is still a form of sadness because it is a negative function of empathy.
Mm.
Mhm.
If I dislike something versus I choose not to participate, those two are very different. Dislike is a direct thing to it, and choosing not to participate is just a gentle push away.
Hmm.
It's just a different energy state. But the negative energy states make the chakras or these nerve clusters pull into themselves and deteriorate everything around them. Because when
Mm.
you touch them and you pull that negative energy out, they start to shake and the tissue starts to expand and move.
Mm.
And it wouldn't do that if it wasn't more vital state of being. I've changed myself immensely from when you guys met me, and my body feels different. I mean, I'm not even doing the steroids that I was doing.
Mm.
Like, I'm bigger than I've ever been
Hmm.
just moving my fascia.
Yeah.
And it's all done through this emotional control. Like, when most people look at me, I mean, I haven't been in the gym aggressively, year and a half. I
Hmm.
mean, I went there for like 2 months pretty aggressive last year, but I've developed myself. I think this is week 7. How many I mean, you've been coaching for a while. Have you seen
Hmm.
somebody with my build that's taken that much time off look the way I do now?
No, no, you had a pretty quick transformation. As soon as you hit those dumbbells,
I was gonna
muscles
say his
started
physique
popping out.
looks different from the last time that we saw him. Definitely looks like he's like put on size.
Put on some muscle for sure.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, starting to take shape.
that body composition's changing.
I'm interested to see what I look like by my birthday in May.
Hmm. Well, it sounds like you train, a lot in the same style that I do with the mind muscle connection, isolating the target muscles, controlling tempo, staying really present and connected to that muscle as you're working out. And I
Yep.
think that's really key for building a physique that takes shape, because you're working each one of those muscles independently, and therefore you're going to have better development and better definition in each one of those.
Yeah, a lot of my coaches back in the day would tell me, "You just need to build out your physique. You just need to put on mass." And as much as I did that, I'd grow slowly. But the rate I'm growing at now is crazy because it's like I was an ectomorph, and now it's like I'm a mesomorph into an endomorph,
Mm,
where I
hmm.
just look at weight and I just put on. So with that said, what is an ectomorph versus an endomorph? When you throw energy into the equation and emotions, it totally changes the game.
Yeah. Well, endomorph to ectomorph. Traditionally, the ectomorph is burning more energy throughout the day, right? They've got this,
Yeah.
we call it a fast metabolism, but their body's constantly burning that energy. And so you can get that through food, but you can also get that other ways too, right? I mean, sunlight grounding, but then I think even mentally, if you're draining a lot of mental energy that's going out all the time, I feel like that affects your development as well.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that I teach my clients is how much energy do they have. So if you look at yourself and the energy that you expend throughout the day, do you have enough for everything you're doing? And did you know that, say, for instance, I've got the weight of the world on me, I need caffeine all the time. I mean, I used to intake 1,500 milligrams of caffeine a day
Oh,
just to function. So, like 3, 4 energy drinks pre workout.
oh.
And I didn't have adrenal fatigue or anything of that nature, but I was just so drained and weighed down.
Mhm.
Without that caffeine, I was sleeping. Like, I could drink a thing of um, like a Bang or something like that, and I could just fall asleep right after drinking that Bang,
Yeah. Yeah, I've been there myself.
which meant that my body was just way overstressed, and it was because of all the negative energy inside me,
Mhm.
because when I peeled that away, I gained my energy back.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And, that kind of goes to the concept too of our, under normal circumstances, our brain, they say, is using 20% of our calories, right? It's like 5% of our
Mhm.
body weight, but using 20% of our calories. And then you think about how we have 90,000 thoughts a day, and 90% of those are the same thoughts every day. And so
I
if you,
got some for you.
yeah,
So, one of my favorite, metaphors, if we take what's a thought that you have every day? Just a negative thought.
God, I got to get big. No, I'm just kidding.
You gotta go so that's a worry, right?
Yeah.
That's a self-worry.
Yeah. I mean, just stress about, business and,
Okay.
you know,
So, let's take worry
yeah.
and have it be a paintball of orange, and you're on a white wall, and every time you have a worry thought, I want you to shoot it. Is
Okay.
that wall gonna be orange or white at the end of the day?
Mm-hmm.
Because if gratitude is white, how many of those thoughts do you have a day?
Ooh.
Touche.
And if we start to look at it that way, you have if thoughts really attract the same thoughts and connections every 17 seconds, and you're firing off an orange paintball
Mm.
50 times in 10 seconds,
Yeah.
you wonder why you worry.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, and it's just, that metaphor there when you lay it out like that, it's just such a great visual representation of, what happens when we let that monkey mind, keep flinging the orange feces everywhere.
Yeah. And then you can also, take that metaphor a little further and take it back to the energy, right? And so if that
Mhm,
orange is energy, you're ejecting this energy
mhm.
towards those worries all the time. And the opposite of that is what? Staying in the present moment and staying there with a clear mind, right? Not
Yep.
having these thoughts of the
Being well,
past and present and things you can't control and things like
well,
that.
and that's the interesting thing with the chakras when they function in a positive state. You just don't have thoughts in the worry. Like, I don't worry about anything. I take things as I go. I'm way more in the present moment than I've ever been. I know that I have desires still for my future, but I don't have so much hold of them for the unexpected to happen.
Mhm.
And I just able to process and move through it.
Mhm.
I do find that when I'm healing people, I will take on their negative energy, and my boundaries to myself help me not be pulled down, because when we're around people that worry, it's always said that you're like the five closest people to you, right? Well,
Mhm.
that's because these energies shift around. So if you're around people that worry all the time, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to bring you down to that level, right? You guys will
Yeah.
probably meet in the middle somewhere, but I think a lot of times that negative one kind of drags down the stronger one.
You're gonna be the sixth worry wart.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, worry used to control me so much, and it's nice to just not have that anymore, just to accept things as they are, and then just build on that.
Mhm.
Because if the law of attraction works in the way it does, and we attract to ourselves the thoughts that we have, then if I'm appreciative, what kind of experiences and interactions I'm going to have with people? Am I
Give,
going to have reasons to worry or reasons to be appreciative?
give you more things to be grateful for, right?
Exactly. One of the most powerful energies in our bodies that I found is the energy of doubt in a negative state, and the energy of faith in a positive state. And only recently was I able to build and stay in that energy of faith. faith isn't so much about what we believe it's an energy that helps bring to us more reasons to be faithful and have faith in our connections, faith in the people we meet, the experiences we get to have, faith in what I get to do.
Mhm.
I don't work. I love it. I
Mhm.
work 7 days a week, but I don't work.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Just living.
Exactly. I'm living my purpose and I love every moment of it. One of the things I found when it came to energy is our upper energies were feminine and our lower energies were masculine. So if we look at masculine energy as power, as strength, and feminine energy as the nurturing and kind of the direction, one of the references I like to give is if I am going to dig a hole, the action of digging the hole is the only thing that's masculine and sharpening the tool, of course. The planning, how it's going to be dug, what kind of pressure I'm going to use, the depth, what it's going to look like, that's all cerebral, right?
Mhm.
So when I was out in Los Angeles here last year, I was standing in the ocean and I would meditate every day. And I got to experience something that was very enlightening for me. Is as the ocean came in, that was the masculine energy. That was the push into me. But as it came back away, it would almost knock me off my feet. And that is the feminine energy. Because if we look at everything we do, if I'm calm, I can take experiences and things as they are. If I'm appreciative and I allow for things to happen, I'm not worrying. And if I'm courageous and I stand for what I believe in, I'm not living in a state of fear. What is that? That's love, right?
Mhm.
Hmm.
And that's a power. But you can also be angry and irritable and worrying and be fearful about everything. What is that? That's hate, right?
Mhm.
But on the flip side, we have sadness. Well, what is sadness? Sadness is shame, it's doubt, and it's inauthenticity. People being things that they're not, hiding who they are, being misaligned with the people they're connected with. And all of this is harming our fascia, which then
Mhm.
causes muscle knots.
Mhm.
So we flip it all back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when
Wow,
you
so
pull that
powerful.
energy out, the knot dissolves. I can do things with massage I've never been able to do just putting a little bit of mindfulness and energy work into it. I can literally peel people's tissues apart and just go layer after layer after layer, going all the way to the bone and finding this little thing that's been pestering that person for years and pluck it out
Mm.
with very little pressure,
Amazing.
all done because of the energy work.
Mhm.
Because it allows me to move the tissue that's trapped emotion. And if a person's not ready to let go of that emotion, do you think their range of motion returns? No, it stays.
Mhm.
And I've learned I go, okay, we work this area for a little while, and then it stops. And their range of motion, it may improve a little bit, but it doesn't get to better to where I was able to heal the other side really well. That's the cool thing I've had with coming back to doing massage because I have my energy work business that I do, and it's distance work. It's able to affect, I'm able to feel what's going on with the people so that I know there's some change going. I've got clients that I'll just poke in, and it works off of, again, quantum physics. So we look at things like quantum entanglement
Mm.
where I'm feeling an emotion, and if I pull that emotion out of me, it pulls it out of you.
Mm.
Okay.
So where the particles are trying to equalize themselves,
So
which
you
is
like
really
kind of tune
awesome.
into your client from a distance?
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
So I can look at a name, I can look at a picture. Sometimes I can just pull the thought of the person in, and I'm able to feel their energy. I mean, this stuff doesn't happen overnight. You develop the skill set no different than anything else.
Sure.
And the more you do it, the more better you get at it.
Mhm.
There's a lot of people that practice this stuff that don't quite have those skill sets, and that's what gives it a bad name.
Yeah, I gotta think some of this, you gotta be a little naturally inclined to operate at that vibration,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
and then combine that with the self work, right, to make it strong.
And well,
Yeah.
and that's the biggest part. Healers like myself usually have lots of inflammation. They have lots of problems in their bodies because they don't know how to get rid of what they're trying to do. And it's back to where the mind, where if I'm doing something and I have no physical change, did I ever do anything? No. Because if you're not able to change the reality you're experiencing from the thoughts you're putting out,
Mhm.
then you're not creating any change at all. You're just in your head.
Right.
And that's what I'm trying to do as a pioneer, going, if you don't notice any physical effects or things don't change, I didn't do anything. And that's where we bring that scientific method into where we're creating physical change and people are experiencing it, which then makes now it's not pseudoscience anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really think this kind of work is going to be kind of one of the next waves here for medicine and healing. I mean, we got two forks in the road, right? We've got the AI dominated big medical system they're building us up, and then we also have the more energy oriented healing
Yeah.
that I think is really coming around again.
There's definitely a movement. You can even see it in relationships where there's a new thing out, and you guys definitely have it, where the woman chisels out the man and the man chisels out the woman. They both work on each other together and they grow together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a common thing. That's why there's so many problems in relationships. Some of my clients, when they start to come out of their box and they start to be authentic to who they are, they no longer are compatible to their partner
Sure.
because it was only compatible when they were in their box.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Seen that as a fitness trainer
Yeah.
many times as well.
And that's part of where that's why we want to be authentic, because alignments help build us up. But if we say, for instance, I don't like a specific music, then I'm not going to entertain that music. But I'm not going to put other people down because they like it.
Mm-hmm.
It's their thing. But that's a different way of thinking instead of saying, I like this, I hate this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All of the music sucks except for the one I like. Yeah.
I mean, it's
And
the
you
same
can,
thing with movies and the same thing with, so if we
Same
start
thing with
looking
movies,
at just being
religion. I
kind
mean,
to
you can put it all in there, right?
animals.
Yeah.
When they're like, I hate dogs or I hate cats. I'm like, they're animals. How can you hate them?
Yeah. Or people that argue over
Something,
pineapple on pizza or something ridiculous
Yeah.
like that.
hey, I like pineapple on pizza.
Me
Hey,
too.
that's our thing.
Yes, I also enjoy coffee beans covered in chocolate. People
Yeah.
think you're
Oh
weird.
yeah.
Oh, those are
Oh,
great.
down for that too.
Almost OD'd on those, I think, when I was 15 years old in the mall back in high school.
Cool thing I'll touch on is babies and animals, since we're on the topic of animals.
Mm.
Animals can tell people that are high vibration
Mhm.
and they will gravitate to them. When I walk in a room, and you probably might have seen the little dog that was moving around, she absolutely loves me.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't spent a lot of time with her, but she just loves to just sit around me and be in my presence.
Mhm.
Yeah, animals can
And
definitely feel that. We get that too when we're just out walking and somebody's walking the dog by and the dog just wants to come to us and be petted by us, you know.
yep,
Yeah.
and that's because of the vibration.
Got that good boy energy.
Yep. It's the same thing with babies. Babies are in a pure state because they don't have a lot of stress outside of what they were born with. And a baby is going to not want to be around someone that makes them uncomfortable. And this is
Mhm.
because of the energy the person is radiating out and attracting.
Mm-hmm.
So they get to have a negative experience with that baby instead of a positive one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they're so sensitive to that energy, and you're right. It's just a pure state of, you know, untouched consciousness where it's just pure and just knows, love is not aware of itself and everything. It's just,
Before all those traumas of the first 7 years happen that
yeah,
stick
Yep.
with them the rest of their lives.
yeah, before all
Well,
that.
and if we look at children, for instance, what's the difference between them and us? It's the stress and experiences, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
So if a person is operating in love and joy, aren't they like a child again?
Mhm.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's great. That's great.
Enjoy it while you can, kid. You're gonna have a mortgage to pay. Responsibilities.
Well, and A lot of that has to do with people do jobs that they don't like, and they do
Hmm.
and they're in experiences that they never wanted to be in, but they're trapped in them.
Yeah.
They don't realize what it's doing to their bodies.
Yeah.
But all of this emotional stuff is showing the toils. So if hatred is a masculine heart center and it affects our pec, a torn pec on the right side of the body means the person hates themselves.
Mm.
And a torn pec on the left side of the body means they hate other people or things and they just hold on to resentments.
No, is that right?
It makes you change your thoughts a little bit. I mean, this is one of the reasons I changed. I actually want my body to function. Years ago, it didn't.
Mm,
Like, I'm 38 years old, almost 39, and I have the body of an 18-year-old.
hmm Yeah, that's how I feel
I did
too.
that through energy work and soft tissue work. It just changing my mindset. Well, energy work, soft tissue work, and all the mental boundaries and training I've done. Because I also do find Stoicism to be a very, very good philosophy.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, and it all really just ties in together, doesn't it?
I'm excited to. I know last time I said I'm writing one book, but people are going to get at least three out of me.
Is that
Oh,
right?
So
Oh,
I've
interesting.
broken it down of where we're going to have in the first part, we're going to talk about the concepts of the mind, body, and how they affect. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the web that we create. And then the third book, we'll leave that untitled for right now.
Okay. Well, that
very
sounds
nice.
interesting. Can't wait to see them.
Watch
And
watch the space, guys.
so, Austin, where can people find you online and more about your services and the message that you put out there?
So I run a blog on my Facebook where I constantly write weekly. Sometimes people will get a little more out of me, but generally weekly is what I've got right now. And the content that I put out there is stuff you'd normally have to pay for. So it's one of the ways that I want people to connect with me. And I write versus more video content because it's more engaging and you have to take some time to think about it.
Yeah, really well
Uh,
thought out stuff. I really enjoy reading it.
Mhm.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
hmm
It's the feedback I get is one of the reasons I continue doing it
Mm.
because there's a lot of people that have gained a lot of knowledge from just understanding these little changes that you can do and how it affects you. You can also find me online at omegawellness.life. And you can also DM me on Facebook as well. If you're interested in massage work from me, you can find me at Serenity Massage in Council Bluffs. And you're in for a treat because I really can make people's bodies vibrate and shift as their tissue grows back into place. And that's just something people haven't experienced.
Yeah.
You haven't even experienced it yet.
Yeah, yeah, not probably your most updated skills.
Oh,
No.
no. I had my session after because you had the at the bodybuilding,
Mhm.
and then I had my energy session with you that day. And yeah, I can absolutely say I think even from Sean's experience with you, even at the very beginning of your work and the evolution and the little bit that I got, and then that's been a few years now, right? So I think yeah, absolutely, people are in for a treat. Uh, Definitely book with Austin. You're going to be in for an experience for sure.
That's definitely what my goal has been is to have people have an experience that is different than what they're usually used to. Because my passion is helping people. My passion is increasing the quality of life for people
Well, you're good
and
at that,
spreading.
man. Keep doing the good work. And thank you so much for your time today. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Thank you guys. Thank you very much for having me. It was an honor.
awesome. Thank you so much, Austin. We really enjoyed speaking with you
You're
today.
very welcome.